I'm sorry, but 2 to 3 months is long enough to feel a vibe from someone and figure out what you want. That time is even too generous self. If you have to do talking stage for centuries, then you need to work on your spirit of discernment and leave people's pikin alone, respectfully. Tweeted by the classic man. Welcome to Tuesday's episode, a brand new episode of the Toya Talks podcast. You know the vibe. You know my voice. It's Toya Washington, the host and creator of the Toya Talks podcast and platform. I'm telling you, it's been a long ass week to get to here. Let me tell y'all, it's been a long ass week to get here. Listen, I'm not complaining. I feel very, very, very blessed. I had a few talks last week. One being Kingston University Students' Union, and they treated me so well. It was actually beautiful. It was an opportunity, I felt, for me to kind of go into a learning institution, and it's the first time I've gone into a learning institution, for example, university or any type of higher education, and be able to deliver Toya Talks. I want to thank the Black Queen that organised and made sure that she got the booking in with me to come down and kind of deliver the Toya Talks. Equally as well, I used that opportunity to go there a day before because it was in Kingston, which is roughly about an hour and a half, 2 hours in traffic away from me. And I stayed in a really nice hotel because I just decided, you know what, if I'm going to do a talk and it's more than an hour away from home, I'm definitely going to book a hotel. So I stayed in a spa resort, which was really nice. It was called the Lesbury Spa Resort. I know a few people were asking me the name, and I will post it on my Instagram page. And it was just an opportunity for me to like sort out my slides and just be away from home and just relax, because I'm always talking about self-care, and I'm going to be the first to say that I don't always center myself within self-care, and I'm learning to do so. And in 2022, I'm definitely going to do that a lot more. I think part of my self-care included going on holiday, but obviously your homegirl isn't vaxxed. So clearly it's not always going to be as easy to go abroad. And I think at some point next year, I am going to try and go abroad and maybe go to a country that doesn't require someone to be vaxxed or double vaxxed or whatever the situation is. But we'll see, because we move. Oh, listen, you see this episode, the ancestors chose this episode. I've been avoiding this episode for a very long time. I'd already had the title of this episode. I'd already had part of the treatment of this episode, but I just wasn't in a position where I felt like I was ready to kind of do this episode. So I'm calling this episode, There Are Good Looking Men and Women in Every Tax Bracket. And that's because the reason for the title is I definitely feel as though, in my younger years, I made really bad decisions, but I don't know whether it's luck or whether it is indeed the ancestors that saved me from making decisions that would basically be irreversible and affect the rest of my life. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later. I do want to talk about kind of a few things that have been happening, and obviously, as you know, in the normal way we do things, then we'll get into the meat and the flesh of the podcast episode, which is entitled There Are Good Looking Men and Women in Every Tax Bracket. Please, can we, first of all, I'm not a massive Kardashian fan. What I do respect is, number one, their work ethic. I respect Kim Kardashian from a business perspective and Kris Jenner from a business perspective. That is all. And I think when one recognizes business in other people and the ability to conduct business and business ethic, I do definitely respect it. Now, Kim Kardashian is very problematic, and I won't sit here and say I'm a fan of hers, because I definitely don't consider myself a fan. But I respect her business. I respect how she conducts business. And I mean, recently they announced a collaboration with Skims and Fendi. I mean, come on, like, it makes sense, And whilst Kris Jenner and the way in which she has pushed her girls is questionable, one can't ignore that she is a business mogul, and she has basically paved and created a business in each of her children, and the most notably is obviously Kim Kardashian and Kylie Jenner. But I want to talk about Kourtney, because me I don't understand Kourtney. I just need to understand. I never really connected with her. Like, you see, every time Kourtney Kardashian gets with a man, her aesthetic changes. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, because I notice things like that. I think it's the Libran in me, and I must say as well, Kim Kardashian is Libran. But I'm just gonna leave that there because I don't know what that means. But Courtney, it's almost like she morphs into the person that she's with, and she changes herself to be with that person, which I think is, again, I don't know how that sits with me. It's an observation. I won't make an assumption. But Kourtney Kardashian, the father of her children is Scott Disick, and all of us know who Scott Disick is. We all watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians. We literally grew up on it, let's be honest. And I don't know, with Scott, he was always, I always felt like he was an entitled, privileged, troubled person who was very confused. He'd gone through a lot of trauma, clearly, and he felt very much at peace in the family dynamic that was the Kardashians. I believe Kourtney has 3 or 4 kids? I think 3 kids with him. And he basically humiliated her on that reality show. He cheated on her. He has been humiliating her from when we first knew about, the Kardashians. And most notably, Scott Disick dated Nicole Richie and Lionel Richie's. So Nicole Richie's sister and Lionel Richie's daughter. I can't remember her name. Anyway, she was just very young, and she was legal, but she was young. It just didn't make sense. And for some reason, Scott Disick dates these young but legal girls. It's just strange, right? And at every opportunity, I feel like he's always used the fact that he has children with Kourtney to humiliate her. The way he would cheat on her, talk to her, behave, it's utterly disgusting. Now, Kourtney Kardashian, I don't assume for a moment she's any type of angel, but one thing that is very clear is that she centers her children and she prioritizes her kids. And she has dated since, obviously, separating from Scott Disick, and why shouldn't she? She was never married to him. They have kids together. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that she's well within her rights to explore other avenues of romance. And that's exactly what she did. And she got with Travis Barker. Now, her and Travis Barker haven't even been dating 6 months. I'm going to say now, when a man knows what he wants, he will pursue it. I'm testament to that. When a man wants to be with you, he's going to be with you. He's not going to make excuses. He's not going to see how it goes. He's not going to wait on God's time. He knows that God's time is now. And Travis Barker has been dating Kourtney Kardashian and said, listen, God's time is now. And he proposed to her. And apparently Scott Disick has lost his mind. Why shouldn't he lose his mind? I think he always held it in his mind that eventually him and Kourtney will get back together. But Kourtney realised, and I'm so happy that she did, what her worth was, and that she was settling with him. A man that is going to disrespect and humiliate you, full stop, but do it on national TV, is a man that doesn't rate you. He never married her. He never proposed to her, but he was happy to make kids with her. And maybe she didn't want to get married to him at the time. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, the humiliation wasn't worth her staying in that relationship. So I'm really happy she got out of it. But I think what Travis Barker demonstrates to us all, when a man wants to be with you, he's going to be with you. You have been with your man for how many years and you want to get married to him. And he's saying, I want to get married to you when the time is right. These times, this man is happy to shack up with you. He is happy to break bread with you, put you around his family. And 10 years down the line, the time isn't right. What is this? Like, what is all of that? And I'm so happy that Travis Barker knew her worth, knew what he wanted, and he executed. He proposed to her in the most romantic way. The pictures were absolutely beautiful. And whether you are a fan or not, the lesson has to be learnt and understood. When a man wants to be with you, he will be with you. And I use myself as an example because, listen, I met Kay on Tinder. I've shared that with you. I'm not ashamed about meeting my man on a dating app because that's how we're meeting people. Because lockdown, how was you talking to people? Hello, we're using social media and everything. Dating apps are exactly the same. Now, I was celibate and I wasn't dating for 4 years before I made the decision to date. I had a lot of things I had to work through, had a lot of trauma. I was still grieving my dad. And I was on those dating apps for I'd say like a couple of months, and I was dating. And one thing I've always said, especially to my single friends, I say, listen, enjoy dating, whatever dating means to you. And when you become serious about dating, and when I talk about being serious about dating, I mean that you have now decided that you have dated and now you want to be exclusive and you want to meet the right person. I'm telling you right now, your energy changes, your mindset changes, your discernment develops, and you put yourself in a state of understanding. And that's where I was, okay? I knew the type of man I wanted to be with. I knew the type of man I wanted to settle down with. Me and Kay were talking, I believe, on Tinder for about 3 weeks. And then we were speaking like on the phone with FaceTime because he was paranoid. I don't know whether he thought like I had like a toe growing out my ear. I don't know. And we were talking for like, I believe 2 weeks. Listen, Kay and I went on a date. After the first date, he was on his way back to Belgium on the Eurostar and he sent me this long ass message. And he's basically saying, I know you're going to be my wife. I know I want to be with you. I want to be exclusive. I want to be with you. And ordinarily where I had guys were trying to like get with me and I'm like, nah. I was like, okay, cool. And if I'm to be asked, like, why was you just so relaxed with saying yes when you had said no to so many people? It's because it felt right. It's because it made sense. I respected the fact that Kay was very clear and concise about what he wanted. He was very consistent through the dating. Through the dating stage, Kay was very consistent. Through the communication stage, Kay was very consistent. And he was intentional. He travelled all the way from Belgium on the Eurostar to come and meet me on a date. When I told him, initially when he was like, he's going to come down, he's going to come, like he wants to meet me for a date. I was like, oh, it's not a date, it's a meet-up. He goes, if I am getting my ass on the Eurostar, border control and all of that, it ain't a meet-up. I'm telling you, it's a date. And I like that because he was very intentional about what he wanted. His actions were matching his words. So we got to a point, and one would say it was quite quickly, and I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would just say that he was intentional about what he wanted. He was serious and he pursued it. And I had already developed discernment. So I already knew that Kay was walking and talking a talk, if that makes sense. So soon after, we were dating for a while, for I believe a year. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say dating. We was in a relationship for a year, sorry. And, you know, we made the decision that we wanted to live together. Now, ordinarily, I was against living with a guy. And Kay will tell you, like, we had many discussions. And I'm going to put my hands up and say it was the best thing I ever did. The very best. I think that if me and Kay had gotten married and then lived together for the first time, we wouldn't, the marriage wouldn't have lasted. And that's on everything I believe in. Because I feel like I'd left home at the age of 21, so I was used to my own company. I wasn't used to sharing. And equally, I wasn't used to dealing with other people's habits and having to share my personal space. And I had to develop that. And I think part of that was when we made the decision, okay, we're going to get a place together. And we're going to, rather than him move into my place, which he did for a year, it caused problems. So we knew that we would have to like get a place together so that we could put our stamp on it. And literally the rest is history. You guys know, October 2020, Kay and I got engaged. He proposed to me. I said, hell to the yes, yes, yes. But I just want to come on here and be very, very open and frank about dating. And I have done an episode about dating and stuff. And I do want to do a few more relationship episodes because I believe that as I guide, teach and educate Black women how to navigate the world of work and life, because I believe work is part of our lives. Like that is, they work hand in hand. And I believe that I can't tell you how to navigate the world of work without also talking about how to navigate life, because literally I have life experience that I think it's important that I share and bring to the table. And whilst I have made my mistakes and I'm quite happy to share what those mistakes are, and I have done throughout the podcast and on my social media, I'm also wanting to also share the learning lessons from those mistakes. And I will say that I've been in situations that have turned into situationships and I haven't even really realized it. And I feel like some of us as women, we think that we can change a man. So what we do is we ignore the red flags and pursue and continue on in this quote unquote relationship until there comes a point where he makes it clear that he's not claiming you. He makes it clear that you're getting to know each other. He makes it clear that he ain't exclusive to you. And suddenly you find yourself in a situationship. And what I find crazy is people in situationships are not taking regular sexual health tests. Because if you're in a situationship, most situationships aren't exclusive. Otherwise, it's a relationship. The foundation of a situationship is the lack of exclusivity and gives people the freedom to continue to explore whatever they want to. If you're in a situationship, that person is telling you that they do not want to commit to you alone. So you've got a decision to make. Are you going to continue? I want to make something clear as well, because I despite what people would have you think, whether you have kids from a past relationship or whatever, the reality is you are allowed to set clear intentions about relationships you want to be in. One of my friends, I remember when she was dating, and she has 2 children, and she said to me, Toya, I think it's easy as a single mother to find myself in a situationship, because from situationships we believe, or I believe, that a relationship can blossom. So I said to her, so what you're basically saying is you're willing to accept crumbs because you think that having children puts you in a disadvantageous position. And she said yes. I said, can you hear yourself? So effectively what you're saying to me is you need to lower the standard of expectation because you have children, and therefore you need to feel more grateful if a man decides to engage in a relationship with you, because down the line he may have to consider taking on your kids. I said, that don't make no sense. I said, girl, at the end of the day, you made a decision to have children with whoever it is that you wanted to. It doesn't preclude you from dating, setting standards and having expectation. The most important thing is that you're very clear about your children. You shouldn't hide the fact that you have kids. I think you should be honest about it, but with the right person. Like if you know that you're going on a date with somebody and you've gotten to know somebody, if it and should it come up in conversation? And my answer is yes, because your children are a part of you. And if somebody is not in a situation where they want to accept your kids, then they don't have to date you, okay? But you and your kids are a package deal. But from the perspective of dating, you're not a package, because literally, it's when you now decide to be serious and you want to be exclusive, then your children become a package, because at some way down the line, there will be a situation where you'll introduce your kids and, he may have kids or whatever the case is. Me personally, I was not interested in dating a man with kids. Not interested. I am my father's only girl. I'm the oldest. I'm not used to sharing, and I'm not ashamed to say that. And I think through the dating process, it made me realize what my likes and dislikes were, what I wanted, what I was willing to compromise on, and what my non-negotiables are. And I wrote them down. I was intentional, and I've spoken about this in an episode previously. Being intentional also means that knowing what your non-negotiables are, because I'm not going to lie to you, there was a point where I was dating some guys and they were just waste men. And I was then thinking, do I need to compromise my non-negotiables to then open myself up to a wider dating pool? And I started talking to this guy, and he told me he had kids, and I ignored it. Because I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to negotiate because he's a really nice guy. And I was talking to him for a while. And this is way before I met Kay. And it came to a point where he wanted to go on a date. And I went on this date with him. Lovely guy, very good looking and everything. And he was saying the right things, that his daughter comes first. And, he's got a really good relationship with his the mother of his child. And I just did not see myself in a situation where I was ready to play stepmom. It's just not me, or step friend, or step whatever. It's not me. And I think that's okay. And when I told him, he was really upset. And he said to me, don't you realize that the older you get, the less of a choice that you have. I said, so what you're basically saying to me is I shouldn't, I basically need to be open, because the older I'm getting, the less options I have, is what you're basically saying. He said, yeah. I say, yeah, but if I've decided that I don't want to date a man with kids for whatever reason, and maybe those reasons are ridiculous to you, why should I have to compromise that just so that I feel like I'm able to date you or any other guy? When I know deep down inside, I do not want to be playing house with you and your daughter. I'm not interested. But I'm happy that you're in your daughter's life. I'm happy that you're an amazing dad. But I want to do it for the first time with somebody who's doing it for the first time. I want to be changing nappies. You're like, oh, that's not how we do it with Charlotte. We did it like this. I want to hear that. I want me and my man to make mistakes at the same time, learn and grow at the same time, and have that as a first, because I know that there's a high percentage that I'm not going to be his first sexual encounter. Fair enough, because he won't be mine. But the reality is, there are things that are important to me that I feel like needs to be first. And if I can help it, I want to date a man that don't have kids. And I walked away from that situation and I felt relieved, because, again, me having to compromise meant that I was carrying that weight of... Toya, you're making allowances for something that you know that you don't want. And I definitely feel that the older you get, the more you feel pressurized by society that you're running out of time. And I'm going to say this now. Society tells you you're running out of time. If you want to have kids, if you want to get married, whatever the case is, there are things that you can do to make sure that you're okay. So, for example, for me, I've done my full MOT. I do my full MOT. I my sexual health tests. I do my ovary tests. I check my fallopian tubes. I do that regularly. So that I know, for example, how many egg reserves I have. Like, there are things I do on a personal level that enables me to know that what I'm working with. Do you understand? And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I feel like I would have married a lot earlier, but I wasn't emotionally ready or stable to sustain any type of relationship. And I definitely feel as though losing my father and going through that grief kind of removed me from even dating. Do you understand? Like, I was in a very toxic relationship. I now know it to be toxic, because when I look back, I definitely think that I tolerated a lot because of the situation in that particular relationship. But remember, I was single and celibate for 4 years before I started dating again as well. So that was 4 years of just kind of trying to heal. And again, if I was in a relationship, it wouldn't have worked. I digress slightly from the Kourtney Kardashian thing. And I guess what I'm trying to hammer home to you guys is, some of you are in situationships, you don't even know it. Some of you are... you don't even know what you're in because you're too afraid to have the conversation, because you think it will undo your situation. And I feel like life is too short. We've been in a whole pandemic, panna cotta. We've been locked up. And I feel like we had an opportunity for the last year to spend time with ourselves and really confront our fears, really confront what makes us uncomfortable, and really look introspectively. And if you're unwilling to have certain conversations because you're scared of the answer, you are going to end up resenting that person you're with, because you would have invested all these years, all this time to prepare a man to be somebody else's husband, or prepare a woman to be someone else's wife. Or, do you understand? And this is how I used to think, because I was in relationships in the past and the relationship will break down. This person will move on and the next person is going to be the person that ends up marrying. Why? Because I've already trained him. Yes, you think it's only mothers that train their sons. Speaking purely from a heterosexual perspective, there has been many situations whereby I've ended a relationship, or the guy has ended a relationship, and I'd invested far too much, been in it for far too long, and then break up, and then the next relationship, he's getting married. And you think, what was wrong with me? That feeling is horrible. That's a different level of rejection, by the way, because it's like basically saying you wasn't good enough for him to take the next step, or for her to take the next step. However, the next person was, where they've spent less than half the time with that person. Your blood, sweat and tears literally was invested in this person who basically disrespected you, didn't even respect what you brought to the table, and literally disregarded your emotions only to go with someone new and be completely different, or be the person you wanted them to be with you. And that needs to be an example. You see, that feeling needs to be an example to you of what happens when you spend too long with somebody, invest too much, and that person drains you, takes your resources and reinvests it somewhere else. Yes, because that person that's left you to go in their next relationship and turns that relationship into a marriage, they've taken what they need from you directly and are investing it. All the learning lessons, all the things that you didn't have and wanted out of that person, all the things that you knew that you did to make that person a better person, they're taking all that knowledge and they're putting it into action with the person they want to make those sacrifices with, because he didn't want to do that with you. But as women, and as a woman that I am, I have to be honest. There are situations that should have ended a long time ago. We're still there because we're comfortable. Fear. What next? Loneliness. I've been there. But let me tell you something. It's worse to be in a relationship with someone and be lonely than not to be with somebody and be lonely. At least when you're not with somebody, you know the reason you're lonely. How can you be in a relationship with somebody and still be lonely? What's that? That's a bondage. What is all of that? So, back to the Kourtney Kardashian situation. I love the fact that he basically showed Scott Disick what a man looks like. A man who's intentional. A man who knows what he wants. The man that knows the value of the woman before him. And a man that's willing to step up and take it where it needs to go. And he proposed to her. A man that wants to marry you doesn't need to waste time. He doesn't need to spend a year getting to know you. Because let's be honest, when you get engaged with somebody, you're still getting to know them. Even when you get married, you're still getting to know them. I'm still getting to know Kay. Listen, this pandemic enabled me to know Kay on a level, on an accelerated level, that I would have never had the opportunity to. I know a lot more about what he does for a living. I know a lot more about kind of how he acts as a colleague at work. I got to know the things that kind of tick him off in the office. I got to know a lot more about what he's passionate about at work, because we were locked down in the house. He was working on one side of the house, the flat. I was working on another. You know, he calls me his we worker. Yeah, we were we workers. Kay and I were fiance. We were we workers. We are best friends. We. So you never stop learning the person. The moment you feel like you ain't learning anything new from your partner, then I don't know what that is. But that ain't a relationship. And equally, we need to understand how to recognize relationships. I definitely feel as though Kourtney Kardashian stayed too long in her relationship with Scott Disick. And there was one episode where I get what she was trying to say, that she just wants to have kids with one man. But in the pursuit of that and her dedication of that, he was cheating on her left, right and centre. He was disrespectful. He was embarrassing her. Who remembers that one scene in a restaurant where he tries to stuff money in this guy's mouth? I've never seen something more disgustingly deplorable in my entire life. It was so disgraceful. And nobody was really calling him Scott Disick. They were like, oh, Kourtney's, the father of Kourtney's child, or Kourtney's baby father. That's what they were calling him. And he was a complete reflection of her. And she was always worrying about him, always centering him. And it's nice to see Travis Barker centering her. And she's living her best life, morphing into him. Black nails, black hair. Like, she's gone down that goth route. And you know what? I ain't mad at it. I mean, girl, you know, you're going to have to stand still in your identity at some point. But I'm not mad at it, because I definitely feel as though she stepped into her own and she's allowed herself to embrace what she deserves. And as, like, a woman, I definitely feel there's many opportunities where I have not embraced what I deserve. And I think a lot of us, especially some of us who come from trauma, we see traumatic relationships or toxic relationships as this person is engaged in this relationship. And I'm just going to let you know that healthy relationships are not toxic. Healthy relationships can be happy. They're not always going to be smooth sailing, but they can make sense and feel comfortable in. You're allowed to laugh in your relationship. You are. You're allowed to be an individual in your relationship as well. Do you know that? I'm an individual in my relationship as I am a couple in mine. And I just think it's important that we talk about that. Can we talk about Steph London and Burna Boy? Let's talk about that. So I was going to do this podcast episode called Around the World in 90 Days because Steph London, I'm confused. Like, she released a single and then she just disappeared. Next thing I know, she's in Lagos drinking, what's that one? The Boots. What's that drink? 1880 or 1980. I'm just be seeing her up and down, up and down, up and down. These times, Burna Boy is releasing Under Love. Under Love. My man is literally living the best life he can live at the height of his career, releasing music. And it's not very often I see Burna Boy, if at all, retweeting Steph London. And I just kind of felt like she was chasing him everywhere. Like, she would just pop up, pop up, pop up, pop up. Now, let me tell you something. I'm not a fan of Steph London, but you know what? I respect her artistry, her craft, and her an astute businesswoman. I respect it. Some of the things that she said in the past are a little bit problematic. However, for the purposes of this podcast episode, I wasn't understanding her chasing. It looked, and this is my opinion, right? It looked like she was just chasing Burna Boy around. It looks like she was so grateful to be in a relationship with him that she just dumped everything, and wherever he went, that's where she was. And, you know, I get it, you know, like, at the beginning of a relationship, you get butterflies and all of that. I understand that. But not at the expense of your career. I definitely felt that if she invested as much time in her career as she did chasing around Burna Boy, she would have hits after hits after hits. I don't even think she's released the album. Has she? I stand to be corrected if she has. But you get the point I'm making. I feel like some women are so grateful to be in a relationship with certain guys. Maybe a guy that they didn't think they would be with, or whatever the situation may be. And suddenly you just forget yourself. You forget your career. You forget your pants. You forget your wig. Now, what's all this? And that's one thing I promised myself when I came out of my last relationship, is that going into any relationship in the future, I would not lose who I was. I would have hobbies. There would be things that I would do just for me. And in order to hold myself accountable to the promise I made myself, when I started dating, I still made sure that I did things I was doing independently. And that was a good test and a good trial run to them being in a relationship, right? Like, if you're able to date around the things that you like to do and still stay true to yourself and still enjoy the dating in equal measure. I definitely feel like with Steph London, I feel like my issue always with her is she's so talented. She recently remixed a track and she just kind of put it on her, I believe it was her, what's it called? TikTok. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I literally replayed it and replayed it. Let me even play it here. Imagine. Have you heard the talent on this woman? Have you heard that? She's a very talented woman. You give the props where it's due. I can't take it from Steph. She's talented. And I literally feel as though she put her career on pause for a man that couldn't even retweet her. These times, their relationship has always been plagued with infidelity rumors on the side of Burna Boy. But I'm so sorry. All of them, I believe. All of them, allegedly. I believe all of the allegedly. I believe all of them. Because he just doesn't strike me. He never struck me as somebody who wanted to kind of be serious with Steph. Listen, by now, he should have made his intentions clear. Oh, Toya, there's not a time period. Listen, when a man knows what he wants, it don't take long, It doesn't have to take up to a year. 3 months, one of my friends, she was engaged, married by the 4th month. Don't listen. From when I was seeing them things, I realized that men know what they're doing because they know what they're looking for. I'm speaking purely from a heterosexual perspective. Yeah? Men know what they want. They do. From my perspective as a woman, I definitely feel as though I didn't always know what I wanted. And I think partly because there were so many options. That's a period. There were so many options. Equally, I didn't really understand what my taste was. I knew, like, I liked tall guys. I knew I liked goatees, and I knew I liked men who were bold. And I'm very attracted to dark-skinned men. Like, So for me, I never, dating, I felt like dating was an opportunity for me to go further than just the aesthetics. Like, I then dated, like I told you guys, that I went on a date with an Asian guy, and literally as I walked through the door, I knew he wasn't my type. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And this is why I'm saying, like, when you are dating is an opportunity. It's literally going for job interviews and see who is auditioning for job interviews with you. That's it. Yeah. Then you have a short list, and then you might have a call list. But you don't have an exclusive until somebody makes their intentions known. Let me help you to understand something. Let's pause Steph London for a moment. When I first started talking to Kay, of course, I was on Tinder. I was talking to other people. But I always made time to talk to Kay. And I never allowed myself to be exclusive to him, and when I say exclusive to him, I think as women, don't we do that all the time, right? Whereby we know we're not exclusive, but we'll cut everybody off and just be speaking to one guy, and I do not believe in that. Still speak to other guys, still go on dates. Tell the guy that you are interested in that you're doing them things. Because he needs to understand, listen, see some of these guys, they need to understand that you also have options. When a man knows you are making him exclusive, especially before you've had the conversation or he has that intention for you, what you are basically saying to him is, I am making you the focus of my attention. I have no other options. So I'm dependent on you to do the same. They ain't gonna do that shit. The same way as women, we have options, men have options too. However, the difference with men know how to date. Women don't know how to date. We don't know how to do that shit. Women don't date properly. I'm gonna tell you this now. I remember, like, an ex-friend of mine. She was dating, like, she was always hungry for a man. That's one thing. And her pheromones of hunger for men was very potent. So I encouraged her to go on dating sites. And this was like a couple of years ago. And I said to her, date widely, cast that net and enjoy the process of dating. If you want to have a whole season, be protected. But go on that process of dating. As soon as she met a guy, she was ready to go exclusive. And she would say it to me. And I got to a point where I just stopped saying stuff. Because clearly she was on her own crusade, her own mission. And she was telling me this guy that she's exclusive with and everything. I said to her, girl, you can't be exclusive with this man. You don't know him. And first of all, you don't even know if there is an ex lurking somewhere. You don't know none of this stuff. And the problem is, if you make him exclusive and he lets you down, you're going to feel it more. And I definitely feel as though if you feel it more, it's because you've not given yourself an opportunity to date other people. And also, you need to compare and contrast, honey. I don't know about you, but I told her, when you go food shopping, do you pick the first orange you see? No, darling. You see the branded one, you see the unbranded one. You might even look at the front ones, you may look at the back. You find the best one. That's how you need to date. That's how you need to date. You need to date like there is a big container of oranges and you're looking for the best. And what happens is sometimes you pick some, you massage some, you'll be looking, branded, unbranded, one has this, one has that, until you find the nice orange that you know that when you cut into, it is going to be so succulent and citrusy. That's how you date. You date like oranges. The girl did not listen to me. So, she was dating this guy. She was exclusive. One day she called me crying. Always crying. That's one thing. She always crying. I said, you need to get like some type of endorsement, some type of something with Kleenex. Because the way you cry, when Justin Timberlake said, cry me a river, honey, you were crying him the rivers and the lakes. That's what you were doing. Because this is not making sense. Your tears are too much. You need to start policing the amount of tears that are flowing through your eyes. There comes a point where you have to be responsible for the silly decisions that you make. She was so embarrassed. But you know, sometimes your embarrassment is too much that in fact you don't care. Now you have to tell. She confessed. She called me. She said, Toya, I've yayed myself. I said, what? So she started dating this guy. And he basically lied to her about what he does for a living, whatever. Then she found out that he works as a security guard in some marketplace, like an indoor market. And he would always take her on dates to this indoor market. Do you know why, guys? Because the food was free. Because he was a security guard there. She said at one time, he came to pick her up. And they were driving. Well, he was driving. She goes, the car looked like a tin can. Whatever, you weren't driving, so you can't now critique other people's car. You got in it as well, so I got to a petrol station. The car was running out of petrol. It was like red. He filled up the tank, but the car wouldn't start. So she was like, okay, should we call like a tow truck? What should we do? AA, what should we do? He said, help me push the car. Do you know that he went into the driver's seat and he made her push the car? I say made her, she chose to push the car. Pushed it to a side road. And he said, are you going to order a Uber? Do you know this girl had to order her own Uber home? And she still went on another date with him the following week. She ended up paying for that date. I said, girl, that's your problem. You didn't set the parameters and the rules of engagement and the boundaries of dating. You made him exclusive. Why? Because he was cute, he had a nice smile, and he was nice to you. Your level of expectation is so low that he thought that it was chivalrous to get you to push his car. Yeah, are you a car pusher? You a car pusher. I said it to her on the phone. She hated me. She said, you're such a bitch. I said, let me be a bitch. You are a car pusher. And after pushing that car, you had to use your fingers and your thumbs to push the buttons to get an Uber that you paid for. I'm surprised you didn't pay for petrol. She went quiet. Girl, I know you paid for that petrol. So you've been suffering in a situation of exclusivity with someone who hasn't actually worked hard to be exclusive with. I said to her, you need to spend more time building up your expectation and your self-esteem before you go into the dating world. And for me, I felt as though once I had done the work within, it was easy for me to go and date, because then I knew what I kind of was looking for, but I definitely knew the rules of engagement with me. If you spoke to me some type of way I didn't like, I ain't talking to you again. If you came on crud, I ain't talking to you. If you were aggressive on messaging, we ain't. There was levels to it. To get to a point where I'm giving you my number so we're communicating off an app, you must have shown me something that I liked. Do you understand? I took my time. I enjoyed dating. Listen, I had one guy dating. I like to go to nice restaurants with that one. I had another guy, he likes to go for walks. I don't mind because you cheap as shit. Let's go for a walk. I don't mind. And we'll swing by Sainsbury's, you'll pay for my shopping. Like, do you understand? Like, before I was dating intentionally, I was just dating. Because I wanted to understand what the pool was like. I wanted to understand what was going on. Do you understand? And as I was dating, obviously there was Tinder that was quite popular at the time. I had one of my friends setting me up with one guy. I let everybody know the pheromones are out. Your girl's dating. Do you understand? At one stage, I wouldn't even know the guys' names. I would forget. And I would play this little trick where I'd get them to show me their driving license. And it was a two-layered trick, because number one, I needed to know that they had passed their driving test and issued with a full driver's license by DVLA. But equally, I need to see the driving license so I can remember their name. Yes! Listen, Toya in her 20s, honey. I enjoyed my life. I did. In my early 30s, I enjoyed my life. Yes, I did, honey. I enjoyed my life. Some of you do not understand how to date sensibly and smart. You don't. You'll be there going on Clubhouse telling people about who paid for the meal first. If you are still talking about who paid for the meal, you've dated down. You've dated down to the ground. You shouldn't be, listen, high caliber, high level. You shouldn't be talking about, if you're dating the right type of man, you shouldn't be quarreling or discussing or having conversations on Clubhouse or in your WhatsApp groups about who paid for dinner. Because a real man, who is chivalrous, a man who is chivalrous, because I know some of you feminists, 50-50. Do your 50-50, he'll give you 50% of him, and I don't want to hear no complaints. Me personally, my expectation is, if you are going to take me out, because I'm not asking you out, you ask me out. Yeah? When the bill comes, even the waiter, they know where to position the bill. They don't position it towards the woman. We're not doing that. I haven't burnt my bra. I'm telling you, place that bill in the direction of the person who invited me out to eat. And when a bill comes, I used to do this thing where I reach my purse. You know, then one lackluster reaching. I'm not even reaching. No, I'm not. I'm just showing you the... And you'll be like, no. No, it's cool. I've got it. Yeah, let me reach. Come and do deep diving into my bag. These times, the purse is underneath everything. Yeah, just to show you that, okay, we're going to do this. Okay, you know. But if you're talking about who pays the bill, honey, your level with when it comes to dating is not on point. That's on period. Back to Steph London. Sorry, we seem to be jumping, but it's all linked. Steph London now is not following Burna. Burna Boy was only following one person, that was Steph London. These times, Steph is the only person you're following. But when she had a new single out, I didn't see you retweeting. When she remixed her new single with Tiwa, I didn't see you retweeting. In fact, when I go through your grid, is there any picture of her? Listen, a guy will show you his intentions by his actions at the end of the day. Everything he says verbally is all lip service. It's all lip service. Half the time, it's just to get into your knickers. So it's better that we all open our eyes wide. Shine your eyes, as my late father, God rest his soul, used to say. Shine your eyes. Listen, a guy, from my perspective as a heterosexual woman, a guy, they don't know how to lie properly. Yeah, they don't. If you pay attention to these men, they can't. Even some of these men that are lying, sometimes there's telltale signs of things. But as women who are wanting so desperately to be in these relationships, we've built up how we're going to get married, we feel like we're running out of time, societal pressures, those are the things that deceive us from not seeing the things that are in front of us. 2 and 2 does not equal 10, honey, it equals 4. So if his behavior is not doing the maths, then you need to do the division and divide yourself away. That's just the thing. And I'm not sitting here as someone who hasn't made mistakes. I've made mistakes, but I'm going to put my hands up and tell you that the mistakes I made was because I refused to see what was in front of me. I refused to look at the telltale signs. And there was a point, especially in my, I'd say mid-20s, where I was so desperate to just be happy that I sought happiness in men when really I needed to fill the gap and void of happiness in myself. I was happy because life didn't make sense to me. You know, I was very much confused about my place in the world. There was a point in my life where I was confused about my sexuality. I was like, do I really like guys? Why? What's the reason? Because I was seeing women around me, you know, have bad relationships. I didn't want that for myself. So in my head, I was like, I actually remember asking my dad the question. I was like, Dad, why am I supposed to like men or guys in your eyes? What is that? And he was like, it's not about in my eyes. It's about what you want and what you feel attracted to and what you like. I'm not telling you to do anything. Like, I'm not telling you what I want for you. I want you to be happy, but I also want you to be very well aware of what you want. And yeah, I grappled with my sexuality 100% because it's not that I was attracted to women. I just didn't understand like why society was pushing a narrative and no one asked me what I wanted. But I'm strictly dickly and I'm not mad at it, honey. Whatever you like, honey, as long as you're happy. And I feel like happiness is a choice, and happiness is free, and happiness is found in the bosom of safety. That's my view. I just feel so bad for women who give their all and forget themselves. And I'm not talking about, oh, when you forget your friends and whatever. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about you as a person when you lose your identity, and maybe your friends are part of that identity. And I definitely feel with Steph London, I always used to feel like, girl, this flying you're doing 6 hours to Nigeria, like, you're gonna promote that single, what are you doing? And she was always like, she seemed just so grateful to be with him. And I don't know whether it's maybe he had charisma, I don't know. And even when things were surfacing, you could tell like she was just forming. And you're with a guy that is not even owning it. He'd do interviews and stuff, but he's not owning it. Like the way she would push his singles, and I'd see her retweeting and reposting and doing all this stuff, I just was not seeing it being reciprocated in equal measure. And in my mind, I was like, a man that really truly wants to be with you, he's batting for you, he's encouraging you, he's your loudest cheerleader. He was really mute. I wasn't really hearing shit. So I just feel like we need to learn from some of these celebrities as well, especially when we're seeing their relationships before our eyes. And I do definitely feel like there's learning lessons everywhere. And with the Steph London thing, I said it with my friends at group chat. Like we were talking like, what is all of this? Like, sis, like you, like, I feel bad for her because I genuinely think she loved him. But we need you to release some bangers, and we need you to do it in the name of Steph London. Thank you. So, I wanted to get into the meat of this episode, and I feel like I've started with the appetizer. I definitely think that, you know, off the back of kind of talking about coming into your own and having your own identity, I think when we're younger, we make a lot of mistakes, and some mistakes kind of affect us for the rest of our life, or leaves an impression for the rest of our lives. And basically, I received it wasn't a dilemma, it was an email from Queen. And this email, I would say it was the most profound email I've ever received in the history of Toya Talks. Because as I was reading it on my phone, it stopped me in my tracks. And as I was reading it, tears fell down my eyes, because not only was this woman being authentically herself, she was being vulnerable in a way that was so beautiful. And she felt safe to share with me that she had made a decision when she was younger, and she was young, like it wasn't a conscious decision, but she was in a relationship, and basically, long story short, she has a criminal record as a result of a relationship that she was in, and it's kind of carried and followed her for the rest of her life, and it's affected job opportunities, it's affected everything, and she went to prison. Now, when I was reading this, she was very clear. She said, listen, I'm happy for you to read it on a podcast as long as you maintain my anonymity. And she was very clear about things that I needed to leave out. But I made the decision that I'm not actually going to read it, because I feel like she wrote to me, and I wasn't ready to read it on a podcast episode. I just wasn't ready, because I kind of felt as though I really needed to come in here and talk about it once I fully processed everything she said. I've reread her message, her email. And something that was very clear to me is she wanted to create awareness for women who are in that situation. And also she wanted me to, I felt, maybe give her some advice about what her next steps could look like. And she feels very trapped, is the impression I received, because of decisions that she had made back then due to immaturity in a relationship that she was in. And she feels almost trapped. And what I'm going to say is this. There are things that happen when we're younger. We're impressionable. We don't know the full ramification. Now, my dad always used to compare my teenage years to being drunk. And he said, as you get older, you become more sober. And I definitely agree, because in my teenage years, I was just trying to figure out life. Teenagers, that's what they're doing. They're trying to figure out their identity, their way in the world. Their development of identity continues right into their 20s. So I definitely feel as a teenager, I'll talk about myself here, I needed structure, I needed stability, and I needed my parents to be in my business because I was very mischievous, and they were. I was very close to my dad. So I told my dad practically everything, bar when I lost my virginity. That's probably the only thing I didn't tell him. But I feel like he probably knew, but respect, he's still my dad. And I definitely feel as though, and this is why I think for a long time I carried a lot of anger, because leaving home at 21 was no age for anyone like me who had my personality to be leaving home. It could have gone so left for me. So left, because I was very vulnerable. And as much as I know my dad didn't want me to leave home, the situation with my mum was so bad that actually leaving home, I can look back and say is probably one of the best things I ever did. But from the perspective of making a mistake that could have literally changed the whole course of my life, yes. And I'm ready to discuss it. So I was dating this guy, and he was lovely. He was a really nice person to me. But something just wasn't quite right. Like, he was one of these people that he would fall asleep on the sofa. And like sometimes you might go near someone or you might try and wake them up, and he would just swing. He'd wake up and swing like he was trying to defend himself. It was weird. And I know that sounds strange. Follow me. And I never quite understood how he made his money, because he told me he was a businessman, but you're not doing that. What is your business? I don't understand. Importer, exporter, cocoa water. What's your business? I didn't get it. But I never questioned it because, again, I was just young, And he treated me really well. And he would come over to mine, we would chill, we would eat, and we always caught jokes. And first and foremost, he was my friend more than anything else. And I appreciate his friendship. Till now, I do appreciate his friendship, but I definitely think that he saw the vulnerability in me. I was very gullible, extremely gullible. And there was one time he came over and he was like, I feel like I'm being followed. Who says that? I was like, why would you be followed? Who's following you? He's like, feds. I said, but why? He said, I don't know, innit? It's like people I hang around with. I was like, what? Who are you hanging around with? And there was one time he came to my house and he was like, I'm just going to go to the car park. And he went to the car park and came back in. I was like, what'd you go to the car park for? He goes, I just meant to meet my friend. So clearly he had brought something into my house, because I felt like, why would they need to meet? It was just didn't make sense. But as I've gotten older and I look back, like, I get it now. Do you understand? Again, I feel like in that situation I was used, right? Because I feel like you're just coming to chill, but clearly whatever business that you're operating, something came into my house. Like, do you understand? Or you received something. Either way, I lived a very, I was very innocent. I just didn't think. And again, my parents hadn't prepared me for that aspect of the world, because at 21, you shouldn't be leaving home. Well, for me anyway, I'm not judging no one, but for me, I shouldn't have been leaving home. I was so immature. I was living in a bubble. I didn't even think I would need to pay council tax, because I was young. That was the excuse I gave my friend. My friend goes, listen, you're old enough to live outside your house, you're old enough to pay council tax. And that tells you my mentality. I didn't have a developed discernment. I just wasn't street smart. I just wasn't. So I had gone to Nigeria. And around this time, a lot of my friends were emigrating back home, or a few of my friends got jobs out there, so they were emigrating. So I went to Nigeria, and I that trip was the best. Listen, you haven't raved unless you've gone to Nigeria. I lived my best life. I was going to Nigeria every 3 months. I was living my best life. When I was in Nigeria, I got a phone call from one of his friends who I knew. He's like, T, so-and-so, he's been picked up. I said, picked up? What do you mean? And he said, I can't really say. I was like, what are you talking about? He said, he got arrested. What? I was I was so confused, but it made sense because he wasn't messaging me. So I was thinking maybe he's pissed because I've gone to Nigeria. I was like, when I got back to London, obviously, this particular person was like popular. Not popular, but within my group of people I knew. I got a phone call. Toya, have you seen the Evening Standards? I said, where? Say what now? Boys and girls, girls and boys. This is how my friend sent me a picture of the front page of the Evening Standard. And this person who I was dating had been arrested with a few other people. Head of a drug ring. What? What? You say what now? You say... I didn't understand. I was like, how could this be? Like, what is this? I was so confused. I didn't understand. But what scared me the most is that this person who is allegedly head of a drug kingpin or whatever it is was coming to my house. I was meeting up with him. We were going to eat. Were we being followed? Because if he's being followed, listen, I've studied law right up until law school, right up until masters. I'm part qualified. I did not finish my training contract because I weren't interested. So I know how the law works. I understand it very well. So they would have been creating a picture of who this person is and then looking at his known associates. And he put me in danger. He put me in danger. All that would have had to happen one time is when he had come to my house, maybe he has something with him, I wouldn't have known. And then they burst into my house and find stuff in my house. Because I don't know if he was coming into my house I don't know. And I felt betrayed because he didn't give me the opportunity to make the choice of whether I wanted to ever be in that situation. But why would he? Because he's not going to. It doesn't serve him. But can you see how the course and the trajectory of my life could have been so different? Because association is enough to cop some charges. And it's scary to me to think that I was so young and so naive, so gullible, that this person could have basically single-handedly changed the course of my life because of decisions he had made. That's wild. So I don't judge anybody. I don't judge nobody. And I understand that it was a lot of luck, a lot of prayer and guidance from the ancestors. Otherwise, my life would have been completely different. Completely. This type of person could have had me hooked on something and I wouldn't have been able to decipher what that was. Do you understand? And in the profession that I'm in, they do like CRB checks, security clearance. They do all type of checks for the role I do. Because I've worked in different institutions and different organizations. I've worked on some high profile stuff. Especially in my 20s. I worked on some high profile stuff. And whenever they would say, oh, well, they need to do a CRB check or they need to do a check, I'm not sweating it. I'm like, cool, do what you want. Because I knew that, like, you know, I'm not a criminal. I'm not into criminal activity. My family's not, like, I'm not from that lifestyle. I'm freely doing that. But my life could have been so different where going for a job and them saying, oh, you've got to declare this or da-da-da, I will now have to try and start going into explanation. I have a friend who, when she was 16, she was 18, not 16. She was arrested and charged with fraud. And she was convicted. Yeah, she was. She was 18. She is now a very, very, very successful social worker. But I remember when she had to declare that she had a criminal record, and she had to go to like a special panel, and she had to explain it and everything, and she was terrified, and she goes, Toya, this is all I want to do. How, like, every opportunity that I have to be or want to do something, this is something that hangs over my head. What am I going to do? And I said to her, just be honest. Take yourself back to when you were 18 and what your life was like, and paint the picture for them so they can understand where you was at that time versus where you are now. And to give her a character reference, a lot of people gave her character reference, and she managed to get on a course. But even now, I think that it's something that she still has to deal with, because they, you know, the way they ask the question is, have you ever had any criminal conviction? And she has to say yes. It's different if they say, have you had a criminal conviction, and maybe it's more than a certain period of time. Then I think for her, she'd probably think about whether she would or not. But again, it may come up in her checks and stuff. Do you understand? But I'm so super proud of her, because I think she's defied the odds, and she has stayed consistent and persistent, and she has owned her mistakes, and she's owned her gullibility, if that's the word. She owned all of that, and she uses it now to teach others, and I love that about her. And whilst we are not close anymore, just because life, she calls me, we always have a chat, because I genuinely believe that people are not defined by the mistakes they make when they're younger. Some people are able to change, apart from, you know, there's certain, you know, like, you know, I don't want to mention it, but you guys know where I'm going with it. This young lady that emailed me, if you're listening to this, I want you to understand something. The situation that you were in is not your fault. You were young. You were naive. You were manipulated. I love the fact that when you wrote to me, you were saying all the things that you do now, and you're currently working and everything. And I get that you don't feel that you're walking in your purpose. But I want you to understand that the decisions that you made when you were younger does not preclude you from having dreams. I feel like your greatest judge is yourself. You're constantly condemning yourself. We're living in a society whereby I'm not sitting here saying, oh, if you get a criminal record, life's going to be easy, because it's not. Especially if you're going into certain professions where you're having to declare constantly. However, there are people, listen, don't you see them protesters gluing their hands to the floor? They're getting arrested, you know. They're copping criminal records. There is always an opportunity to explain. There is always an opportunity to explain. And I'm not saying that explanation isn't going to come with judgment. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't want you to kill your dreams because you feel like people are not going to give you a chance, because that's not always the case. There are things, roles, decisions that you're going to have to make in your life to give you access to the next level. And I think that you have to come with a level of authenticity, truth and honesty, and often put yourself back into the position where you was before, as in mentally back there, to be able to explain it to other people. And those people who do not understand are committed to not understanding. We're living in a society where some people judge and some people do not. And I would like to live and work and be around people who are not judgmental. I definitely feel as though having aspirations should not be killed off because you feel like, because of having a criminal record or anything like that, is going to preclude you from certain things. Now, the reality is, there are some professions where if you have a criminal record, that's it. But then I definitely feel like we have to also look at the success stories of people who have come from certain backgrounds, have had certain things on their record, but yet still been able to be legitimately successful. See, we're living in a society definitely that compartmentalizes people into boxes. We're living in a society where oppression is real. The structure of the way society is built is not for the success of black people. We are literally clawing our way through. We're literally breaking ceilings. We are making noise. we are creating awareness. This is why we are seeing success. And it doesn't come without its struggles. And what I'm trying to say to you is, people that you work with, not every single person in your organization doesn't have something on a criminal record. There's at least one person that has a criminal record, but yet they're still working there. I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, the odds are stacked against us. The odds aren't stacked against us. The system is trying to keep us oppressed. But some of us are breaking through and we're leaving the door open for the rest. Do you understand? And it's really important that I say that here. Because in as much as this queen wrote into me, she trusted me with what she wrote. And I give her the utmost respect. Because it takes a certain type of strength to be able to confront your fear and stand up and be counted. It takes a certain type of courage to hold your hands up and say, you know what, this is where I was at the time. This is where I am now. It takes a certain type of person to be able to say, you know what, I am going to defy the odds and be resilient against the decisions that I made because I know who I am now. That takes a certain type of person. But I also know it's exhausting and it's tiring. It's laboring. But in order to attain success, it's not going to come easy. But success is not just isolated for certain types of people. Listen, a lot of decisions that some of us could have made, it would have taken one wrong decision. Our life would change. I've just given you the example of myself. My life could have changed. And when I realized that my life could have gone a different direction, I put it down to my ancestors, a little bit of luck, and God's glory. Because when I think about it and truly deep it, this man could have ended my career. He could have ended a career before it started. I probably wouldn't even be here right now recording this, talking to you. You guys won't even know who I am. And this is why it's so important with the generation coming up, that we're actually very honest and very real with them about the consequences of some of their decisions that they make. We see a lot of these teenagers making life-changing decisions that they can't come back from. We see it every day. And it's only when they get to our age they realize that they messed themselves up. And it's difficult because there's certain crimes that no matter what you do, that's going to be on your record. It's going to be on your record. It's very rare you can get stuff, like, is it expunged? Is that the word? Or taken off your record? It's hard. Because you've got to also remember the society we're living in, the era, the times we're living in, they place weight on certain crimes, given in a certain, they give weight to certain crimes now that back then they wouldn't have. You understand? So the sentencing is higher or different in comparison to what it was back then. We know that there's a high rate of black prisoners in the UK prisons. It's very disproportionate. We know that. So I definitely think it's important. I mean, from my perspective, I'm going to be very honest with my child about decisions that I made that could have landed me in the wrong way if I had made the wrong decision. If I kept company with the wrong people and continued to, my life could have been different. You hear about all the time, like these teenagers are chasing money and somebody asked them to carry something and they're in another country, banged up abroad. How many of us would watch them things? And that was a split decision, not thought through, not weighed up. Exploitation, manipulation, sometimes just brazen disregard for life. And suddenly they're banged up abroad, extradited here to come and finish their sentence. We hear it all the time. And this is why it's important for me to do this episode. Because I feel like in as much as I've shared with you certain things, there are people really going through it out there, whereby they feel like they're always going to be defined by their decisions when they're younger. And I don't necessarily think that. But what I do think is important that you confront your fear. Because being defined by your fear means that you allow your fear to arrest you in a certain position. And you'll be there. You'll be there. You'll be there. And I feel like we need to have honest conversations with ourselves. So maybe this episode is to have an honest conversation with you. And remember what I always say. For me, I'm guided by my ancestors over what episode to produce, edit and release. I will always have like notes, and I'll always have like a treatment of an episode. But it's weird because the ancestors will tell me this is the one you need to do today, not this one. Because this one was last minute change where I planned this episode, but I put it to one side. And the ancestors did something today. They used a living angel to say to me, we need this. So this is what I'm delivering. And whoever needs to hear this, please receive this in the grace in which I'm delivering it. Because no one is above mistake. No one. Nobody. We make mistakes, we're human beings. What we're actually saying is, Lord, let us not make the type of mistake that will completely change the trajectory of our lives, that is unrecognizable to a point where we have no control. That's the prayer, right? Even when I drive, I'm very conscious of driving. I'm very conscious to be a safe driver. Because if I make a wrong decision, that could cost someone their life. If someone makes a wrong decision on the road, that could cost me my life. Do you understand? Driving is also a big risk. It's a big risk. There's so many things that we do in life. That's a big risk. Some people are doing fraudulent things in their job. Risk. And when you dig deeper, and I'm not trying to make an excuse, but dig deeper, and there was a story with a backstory there. And I'm not using it to justify it. I'm not doing that at all. But I'm just saying. Because it takes a split second to make the wrong decision. A split second. And all of us have to hold our hands up that we have made decisions that are questionable. It's just grace and glory that we're still here to testify. Let's be really honest. How many of you have been in them type of relationships you have no business being in, and you know you're in them? At least my own, I didn't even know. But even the ones that you don't know, you hear the story of where the woman didn't know. But would they call it enterprise or what? Yeah. There's this one lady, I think I told you guys, she sent me a DM. Or was it an email? I think it was a DM. And she's dating this guy, and he sells drugs. And she basically said to him, you need to stop doing this, because I can't be with you. And he said, let me just do one last month, and then I'll have enough money to set myself up, and then I'll do it. That last month could change the trajectory of your life, darling. Because that could be the month that the police decide to put him on observation and build a case. They could build a case to say that both of you are jointly involved in this. You have to make a decision in your life. Sometimes those decisions may seem painful. It's only in years to come where you start realizing that had you not made that decision, your life could have changed for the worse. A lot of us have examples. I realize when I speak to my friends that they had examples of being in a relationship with someone or dating someone or whatever it is with someone, and realizing something, and their life could have just completely changed. What we're saying is, with the younger generation, make better decisions than us. The generation coming, they're amazing. When I went to Kingston Uni, I was in awe of them. I was in awe of their tenacity, their bravery. I was in awe of the confidence. I was in awe of their ability to express themselves in a way that I never did and I never could, because the society was different back then when I was growing up. These youngins, they're growing up with social media. They're growing up with a form of consciousness that we never had. They have more than what we do. They have a voice, and they force that voice to be pushed to the front, and they stand tall in who they are. Or at least if they don't know who they are, who they think they are. And you've got to respect that. When I was at Kingston Uni, I was in awe of them. They were speaking about topics that growing up for me was a taboo. They were talking about mental health. They were talking about all the aspects of the world of work and what they are anxious or conscious of. And I felt like, yes, I'm introducing you to the Toya Talks platform. I'm introducing you to tools that you're able to use before you've even dealt with the trauma of the world of work. At least you're going to go in with your eyes open. I didn't get that. And this is why, for me, of all the talks I've done, and I've done many, Kingston University was very special to me because it was my first learning institution. And I was able to go there and teach. I was able to teach. And they received it and they learned and they took it in. It was so beautiful. And I was vlogging. You guys know I'm vlogging, but I didn't vlog that. Because it was so personal that I felt like it was so inappropriate to even vlog. It just wasn't that. It just wasn't that. And I feel like there are going to be situations where I'm not able to vlog because it's that personal. And I have to make a split decision about how I create a safe space within a safe space. Do you understand? And yeah, I just hope that you guys receive this episode. I hope it lands with you, because I know that there's someone, somebody, some many that need this episode. You need to hear it, because I definitely think it's not spoken about enough. It isn't. Listen, some of us don't have any business dating certain people. You know, like we went through that phase of bad boy. I went through that phase of a bad boy. And this is the reason why my sideburns were not growing. This is the reason why the back of my hair was dropping out. Because chasing bad boy. We like how it made it feel the risk and all of this. Do you know how many people are in prison now because of bad boy? Do you know? There were a few reasons why I did not want to qualify as a lawyer. But one particular case, I felt sick to my stomach. There's this woman, and basically she was being charged with fraud and a few other charges. And the law firm where I was doing my training contract, we were representing her. Her husband had fled to Nigeria. When they searched her home, because it was under surveillance for several months, they built a whole case on this woman and her husband. They believed that he was the head of everything, but they believed that she knew exactly what was going on and she was complicit. Now, what I couldn't figure out is whether she knew what was going on, but when I saw the boxes of documents that came out of the house, fraud, it was in the millions. And the firm that I was working with were tasked with defending her. I'm not going to get into too much detail because that case, still to today, I think about it. I think she's out of prison now because I believe she got about 8.5 years. And they tried to use our firm to trick her into telling them where her children were so they could take them into care. It was too much for me. After that case, I never went into another criminal courtroom again. I can't, honey. I just can't. And then she refused. Well, I shouldn't say she refused, but she basically said she didn't know where her husband was and all of this. They found so many passports in the house. They found cash. They found so many things in the house that it was difficult for her to say she didn't know what was going on. But that was her story and she was sticking to it. And when she was found guilty and sentenced, I remember, like, in that particular court, we had to go down to the holding cell. And obviously I was allowed to go because I was working for the law firm that was defending her. And the barrister we hired was amazing. And I looked at her. And she looked at me. And it was this look like her whole life has completely changed. Her husband's left her. He's enjoying the fruits of his crimes. Whether she was involved or not, the fact is she's now serving a sentence for fraud. And the rap sheet was long. There were so many things they said. In fact, They tried to say as well that she was running a criminal enterprise. All of this. The pictures of surveillance, the things that I saw, it was uncomfortable. I just couldn't believe it. And I think what upset me was that, obviously, when somebody is on remand, you get to know them. And whilst at the end of the day, you know, people are actors and actresses, or actors, yeah. I couldn't help but feel like, whether she was involved or not, there was a point where she wasn't involved. And then there was a point where she became complicit. And then there was the point where she was involved. She lost her home. She missing out on her kids. Her husband, she can't even divorce him because my man is gone. There's no way out of this. She couldn't even get bail because they said she was a flight risk, and she was a flight risk. And everything about that case just left something in my mouth, like a sour taste in my mouth. It was almost like, because they couldn't get to the husband, the way they did this woman. Hey! And you know, obviously they have to give us full disclosure, but it was the way it was presented to the court. It was a lot. The performances from the other side, I was like, Crown Prosecution Service, will you not rest? Hey! That was a 7-day trial. 7 days. Hey, God. Hi, yeah. Women, please. I'm talking to all of you. Shine your eyes. Don't let someone else's choices define your future. And those of you who have made choices that have literally changed the direction of your life, no condition is permanent. None. You're still a human being. You still deserve love. You still deserve happiness and success. But it just means you have to go about things differently. It just means you have to be strategic on how you do things. And when I say strategic, I'm talking about strategic strategy to obtain success legally, is what I'm saying. I'm not sitting here saying that life is easy, because it ain't. But equally, I'm talking to those people who are in situations right about now, and you have no business being in that situation. Don't allow this person to define your life, because you'll never forgive yourself. Because there's no do-over. There is no do-over. This society, where they want to label us, there's no do-over. Those who have ears, let them hear. Those whose heart is open to receive, may you receive this message. Those of you who are weary, may this episode give you comfort. Those of you who are unsure, may you find surety through this episode. I'm going to now read a couple of emails that I received in the mailbox. If you just bear with me un momento. Whew, what an episode. That was heavy. That was heavy, honey. Let's go. So this young lady sent me an email. Now, she'd previously sent me a dilemma, and I remember the dilemma. But she then, I advised her, and then she sent me an email recently. She says, "Hi Toya, I hope you're well. After a few rejections, I have finally secured a new role and negotiated my salary thanks to purchasing your negotiation masterclass. One of the reasons why I wanted to leave my role is the sheer amount of work for 3 people. It's never ending. I keep a record of my hours, and I'm currently 2 weeks ahead, 80 hours of overtime. I wish to leave in a good space with my boss, especially as he is also connected in the industry, and that will include a handover. However, this will mean more hours on top of my usual work. Can I request overtime pay during my notice period to ensure I leave with a good relationship intact, or do I just do what I can? My employment contract makes no reference to overtime. Kind regards, Anonymous." So I wrote back to her and I said, well done, congratulations. The answer is yes. You can ask, and I would encourage you to use the skills learned from the negotiation masterclass to do so. You have leverage. You are leaving and you are learning. You are learning. Sorry. Let me start again. Well done. Congratulations. The answer is yes. You can ask. And I would encourage you to use the skills learned from the negotiation masterclass to do so. You have leverage. You are leaving. And you are leaving with knowledge. This knowledge is what they need. Therefore, anything over and above what you are employed to do, e.g. extra hours, warrants a conversation and an agreement in writing to overtime pay. You lose nothing by asking, but be confident in your request and be clear on the reasons. It's in their interest to say yes, and if they say no, you take the knowledge and leave peacefully, knowing that you made the right decision to go where you are valued and appreciated. And she emailed me back. She said, thank you so much. I will do so. All you do is truly life-changing, and I can't say thank you enough. And I thought that was quite a nice one. Obviously, she knows that her value is not being realised where she currently is. She's working all these extra hours, and then on top of that, they're asking her to do more hours and do a handover. So I just think if your contract is silent on overtime, why not? You know, as part of the negotiation masterclass, I talk about leverage. It's important because leverage basically is the thing that can persuade people. It's what is unique to your negotiation position that will convince somebody into coming to your way of thinking and creating a win-win. They win because they are leaning on her knowledge that she's going to take away with her. She's given a handover. Handover is not a contractual requirement. How many of us have turned up to jobs, no handover, no nothing, just a laptop, not even a password? So we have to understand that there is an advantage in being able to have some form of handover and someone give it to you, especially if you're leaving and before the person starts. So you're creating a handover document. That's knowledge that you've acquired over the course of your employment. So to this young queen, of course you're going to negotiate it. And we know that you are a confident negotiator because you've used the negotiation masterclass and the skills to be able to negotiate a higher paid job somewhere else. So why don't you use those transferable skills to your current situation to leverage the fact that you're leaving, to leverage the knowledge that you've gained so that they pay you overtime? You know, my dad always used to say a labourer is worth his wage. And what he meant by that is you work hard and you give. You are worth the wage. You are worth the overtime. And I'm so happy that she asked and she checked in because I feel like she needed that encouragement. Go forth and conquer. And I really, really hope that she does. So please let me know how you get on. I'm so proud of you and congratulations on your new role. And I'm so happy that the negotiation masterclass could contribute to the next chapter of your career. And I'm really proud of you. And I think that's important to say. And I think it's important for us to also realise and acknowledge our value. So I received a DM. So I'm going to read it to you guys. Happy Monday, and I hope you're well. In February of this year, I bought your CV masterclass and updated my CV using your pro forma CV. I then resent my CV to a recruitment company that had rejected my application last year. So I asked the agency to reconsider my application, and this time they were impressed with my newly polished CV and immediately added me to their books. Just this month, the agency told me that there was a role in a particular well-known organisation, and I told them that I'm happy to be put forward for it. I didn't think much of it and just continued with my life. Then nearly 2 weeks later, I received a call from a recruiter at the agency. He was flabbergasted when he advised me that the company had selected me for the role without needing an interview. The recruiter said that this particular company selected me out of all the other candidates and that they had put forward just because and off the back of my CV. The recruiter and his colleagues were shocked and said that they weren't sure how to deal with the situation since it had never happened before. Normally, big companies like this would interview candidates first. This is a miracle from God, and I will forever give him all the praise and adoration. I will be commencing my new role with a salary of a 10k increase from my last role I had before the pandemic. Remember I told you that the particular company I work at now, had tried to fire me because of my learning difficulty. And I remember listening to a podcast episode, Dyslexia, I'm a successful black professional with a learning disability. God is great, and he used you as one of his many vessels to bring about this testimony. God bless you, Toya. I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud of her. She said, in contrast to the job where I am now, this new one is fully remote, so I can easily use my so there's certain things that she has that can help her do her job. I just pray that the trauma from my last workplace or my current workplace will not continue to affect me in my new job. Your CV masterclass has contributed to this achievement. Imagine being selected for a role just because your CV impressed them. I'm so happy I invested in your masterclass at the beginning of the year. I'm incredibly grateful for your platform, and I've never missed an episode. I recommend it to my friends and to anybody who I feel can benefit from it. Even my mum. My mum has always said, Toya is the sort of person you should be listening to. Happy I invested in the masterclass at the beginning of the year. May God continue to bless you and expand your territory. What you are doing is not to be taken lightly. You are operating in your purpose, and your past experiences are helping thousands of women worldwide. Thank you for being you and walking in your purpose. God bless. You know, what I love about this message is that she's fully understood the assignment of the masterclass. You see, I've always told you guys, I'm not going to do a CV review package thing. I'm not doing that. You have to own your career. You have to own your CV. Your CV is your shop front. It's your shop window. That's what your CV is. Yes, it is quite possible that you can be hired just off the basis of your CV. It's happened to me. Yes. If you have a very, very good CV, an organization that wants you, some organizations, they don't have to interview you. They don't. Listen, the commercial space has changed. This role that she's doing is fully remote now. So even if they were interviewing her, they will interview her remotely. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages, but the reality is, to be hired off the strength of your CV must be doing things. And she's confessed it here. She said, Toya, after the CV masterclass, after months of looking for a job, a recruitment company that I'd approached and they rejected me, I did the CV masterclass, updated my CV, used all the tips from the masterclass and reapplied to this agency. They put me on their books. That was the first win. Then they put her forward for the role. Do you know what it is for a recruitment consultant to call you and tell you that they're shocked that you've been offered a role? You have been offered a role, not off after an interview, off the strength, off the back of your CV. Your CV cleared up. The floor was clean because it was clearing things. And I'm so proud of you. Congratulations. The reality is, we are often carrying trauma from past roles. We are. But you said something quite important. You said you never miss an episode. So that means that there's episodes for you to revisit and listen to. There is the podcast that will continue to support you through your career. Because I acknowledge that I have had to work through my trauma of past roles in new roles. And as uniquely gifted and amazing that we are as Black queens, we understand the importance of our mental health. We understand the importance of investing in ourselves through therapy and self-care. And the reality is, it is very, very normal to be working through past work traumas in new roles. The most important thing is that we're conscious and aware of it. We understand the importance of creating boundaries and establishing rules of engagement. We understand burn folder, feedback folder. We also understand that where trauma has existed in past roles, there is an element of investment we have to do on our self-confidence, because I definitely know that from past roles that I've been in, the trauma that I've experienced has knocked my confidence. And I've learned from that too. Like, if my confidence is affected by a certain role, I need to go, because my mental health and my confidence and my integrity and my character is all I have. So, Queen, enjoy this. This is yours. You did this. You invested in the CV Masterclass. You invested in yourself. You invested in your career. You made the decision. And I'm so incredibly proud of you. 10k more than what you're getting now. That's big moves. That's a whole new tax bracket, honey. That's a couple of tax brackets. I'm very proud of you. Congratulations and well done on your new role. And thank you for coming on here and sharing. Lastly, we have a dilemma, and this dilemma, I believe, I've got it as coming through on the 6th of October, but I think it actually came in before that. And it came in via my DM, so this is the reason why I missed it. Hi Toya, I hope you're well and keeping safe. I wanted to ask you about something. A few weeks ago, I applied for a job, a copywriting job, and the company contacted me to say that my application hadn't been successful. In their email, they said that they'd been overwhelmed by the amount of high quality applications and other candidates had more of the specific set of skills that they were looking for. I thanked them for getting back to me and asked them for specific feedback, because I'm currently trying to transition into a copywriter, content writing full time. After 30 minutes later, I was on LinkedIn and saw the same company had re-advertised the role there. It was originally for a particular company, a particular sector, and I'm not saying what the sector is. I wanted to call them out because I feel like something influenced their decision to not invite me for interview. I'm not sure what it is, but I do think that shows a lack of honesty. I wanted to call them out because I feel like something influenced their decision not to invite me for an interview. I'm not sure what it is, but I do think that it shows a lack of honesty. If they have so many high quality applications, why have they now turned to LinkedIn? It doesn't make sense. Sorry for the long message. I just wanted to know your thoughts on this kind of situation. And she goes, please keep me anonymous. So I will always keep your anonymity first and foremost, but also as well, if there are certain things that I think that would, that I think needs to be changed, I would never share it on here. And I believe I've done that in reading your dilemma. It's really horrible to be in that situation, right? Where you've applied for a job, maybe paid to go down for an interview, or invested time, getting changed, like dressing up to be remotely interviewed, to be told actually you're not good for the job or you haven't been successful, and then see the job re-advertised. That's how it goes. Sometimes that's just how it is. I think something that's important, and I say that's how it is, what I'm actually trying to say is sometimes things like that do happen. It's not right, but it does. There is no obligation, legal or otherwise, that an organisation will have to give you feedback. However, in this situation, I do think that you could have called them out on it because you had nothing to lose at that point. I get that the industry isn't as big, but I feel as though if that was me and I was really questioning it, I would screenshot the LinkedIn ad and I would send it to them and say, although I know there's no legal obligation or contractual or otherwise to give me feedback, I would like to put you on notice that I really tried hard at this interview and I would like feedback because clearly I wasn't good enough for this role because you've re-advertised it on LinkedIn. And whilst my feelings are hurt and whilst I feel upset, in order for me to grow as a person, it's important that I understand where I went wrong. So for the next role or the next opportunity, I'm able to grow. You don't owe me the explanation, but I think that it's polite, common courtesy and professional to be able to give people honest and accurate feedback and then walk away. Some organisations, they'll just ignore you. Others may tell you. But I have been in a situation, especially in my early 20s. I remember I applied for a role. I didn't get it. And then I was told the job was withdrawn. However, it wasn't withdrawn because one of my friends had an interview with the same agency for the same job and got the job. And at that time, I didn't even know I could ask for feedback. So I didn't even ask. But I took it as a rejection because it felt like that and it was that. And I felt like I wasn't good enough. and I didn't understand what was so good about her CV that wasn't good about mine. But equally, I also acknowledge that I don't want to be in a place whereby they treat people like that. Because if you treat people like that at interview stage, what is the conditions of their working environment? I learned that pretty quickly. And she was only there for 2 weeks and she left. And she said that the person before her had left on the same day. So I was almost quite grateful that they didn't hire me and that they treated me in that way, because the precedent that they set is that I now look at the interview process as part of a determination about, number one, if I want to accept an interview, but two, if a job offer comes out of an interview, whether I'll accept it. I've rejected a job purely because of an interview process, and I put myself through the interview process just to see how I fare, but got to a point where I was like, do I really want to work here? Do I want to invest my time here? If this is how they treat me, well, they don't even know me at interview stage. What's the condition of my employment? And then that's where I started really looking at researching organizations. People will come and tell you that this organization was established in 1942. You know, when in an interview and they say to you, have you got any questions? Or do you know anything about the company? Then you will start giving the biography of the company. No one cares about that. What you need to do is understand what market they're in, the industry they're in, how they fare in that industry, point blank in the period. The rest of your research has to be about the conditions of that employment in that organization. Doing your due diligence before you even enter the chat. I've gone into interviews and I'm like, I did a bit of research in your organization. Some of the common denominators in terms of feedback from ex-employees is that the lack of career progression. Can you speak to that? What does career progression look like, and what has your career progression looked like in this organization? Bam! You're giving the person the opportunity to use their high shoulders to come and show off and tell you how fantastic they are, whilst putting them in a false sense of security to be honest with you about what their career progression has looked like, and therefore giving you an opportunity to make an assessment about whether you want to work in an organization that stifles growth. Do you not see? Sometimes flattery manipulation will allow you to have a clear picture about an organization in a way that you won't necessarily get just solely on doing external research. Do you understand? So I feel like you've had a lucky escape, darling. Because any organization that treats people in that way is not the type of organization you want to work for, because you'll be constantly uncomfortable in your seat, thinking about if they're going to let go of you at any one time or they're going to manage you out. And whilst, don't get me wrong, some organizations can be quite manipulative, create a false sense of security, and you go then there's a whole heap of madness. But the reality is, first impressions count a lot. First impressions on dates, first impressions of job interviews. Yeah? Hopefully that helps. And I just want to let you know that you are not defined by this role or the lack of this role. There is an opportunity waiting for you. This queen did write to me in my DMs, and I was so like, the way she writes is amazing. I can definitely see how she is a copywriter or content or creative writer. I can 100% see it, because she writes so well. She's so talented. And I did tell her that. And the right opportunity will come. All I will say to you is position yourself. Do your research. Update your CV. Make sure you have a best-in-class CV. As much as possible, gain as much experience as you can. Leverage that to be able to get access to your industry and be able to work in organizations that you choose. Anyway, guys, I believe I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to meet here again next week, Tuesday. You know the vibe. Also as well, you guys know I've been vlogging, because I did say that I will be vlogging on my YouTube channel, which has been rebranded. My YouTube channel is called At Home with Toya, because I do spend a lot of time with you guys. If it's not with the podcast, then it'll be on the vlogs. And literally, I'm just showing you guys my life as much as possible. There's so many things that have happened behind the scenes that I have not shared, and I will be sharing on the vlogs while still maintaining my privacy, but being able to give you like a closer look at kind of how I live, my life, my public speaking, and what my business actually looks like, what my day-to-day looks like, how life is basically. Like I said, there's a lot of things that have happened that I haven't shared on social media, and I will be sharing on the vlogs, and one of which is obviously like chartering my traditional wedding as well, from the perspective of a bride, because I feel like whenever we look on social media, it's from the perspective of the cameraman or whoever else is in the room, but not always from the perspective of a bride. So I will be doing that on the toilet and everything. And I definitely feel as though current experience in dealing with vendors and knowing that the African wedding community is very small. Vendors are very mad. If you follow me on social media, on Instagram, I do talk a little bit about it. But I have a lot of respect for Talks with Ash, because she really lifted the lid on Clubhouse about makeup artists. And as a bride-to-be and other future brides that were in the room, we took notes of all the makeup artists to avoid. And I know that she went through a lot of shit on Clubhouse and social media, but I think that was probably one of the best rooms she's ever done. And off the back of that, I kind of feel like I need to lift the lid on weddings and vendors and the madness that they do, because they do craziness. Imagine emailing an MC and asking him for a cost and availability, and he's there interrogating me, asking me, do I have a wedding coordinator? Who is she or he? What is the culture of the bride and groom? All of this. Meanwhile, I've only asked you for availability and cost. Fair enough, you want to know the amount of guests. That makes sense. But why do you want to know if I've got a wedding coordinator and who it is? Why do you want to know all this information? It's a shakedown, because you want to price me according to the venue, according to if I have a wedding planner and who it is. You want to price me based on what? It doesn't make sense. And I'm actually going to name and shame on the vlog. I am, because that's my experience, and I'm telling the truth, and I'll evidence it. I'm going to say it. And I just think that future brides, brides to be, some of us are entering this whole different world, and it's completely mad. People are charging astronomical prices. I mean, for example, when I emailed a makeup artist about makeup, she quoted me over $1,000. My cousin said to me, when you're emailing these people, don't email us Toya Washington, email us someone else, because these people will Google you, these people will go on Instagram. And when I emailed from a different email account, I was quoted about £900. So makeup was at 1,005. She quoted me, quoted Toya Washington, and then quoted my other email address. £900. Listen, I'm lifting the lid. So yeah, there's going to be a bit of controversy on my channel. People are going to be upset, but the way I look at it is this: I spend in my community as much as possible. However, within our community, we can't be afraid to call out bullshit, because what happens is, if we're afraid to call out crap, that means we're keeping things under the radar. We keep things under the radar, we're not sharing. And whilst I'm not here to discredit anyone's business, but I'm a paying customer, and if I'm not happy with what I'm receiving, what I'm about to receive, or what you're saying to me, I have every right to share it within my community to make other brides aware of what they could encounter with you. And the reality is, when we start policing internally, as in our community, we start policing how people do business, we start seeing business ethics being at the forefront of people's business. I feel like the pandemic hit a factory reset. Humility was our all-time high. Suddenly, we're out of restrictions now, and everyone's back to normal, like the pandemic didn't happen. Humility is out the window. And I definitely feel as though, more than anything else, a lot of people can't afford wedding planners. A lot of us are doing it by ourselves. And I definitely believe that there are going to be vendors to avoid, and I'm going to talk about them. I'm even going to share my venue with you guys. Yeah, once I've got married, then I'm just going to share my venue with you guys, because my venue is amazing. They've been very lovely to me, very accommodating, very understanding, and I negotiated a bad boy package by myself, because clearly I've got a negotiation masterclass, so go figure. So I'm going to share everything, and I'm so excited. And there's some things that you're going to be like, oh, there's going to be ooh-ah moments. So my first vlog launches in November. I've got my new iMac that has arrived. I haven't even unboxed it. I'm going to do an unboxing on the vlog. And then I'm going to start editing probably from week after next, because week after next we're in November. I need to just do a couple of things, but yeah, I will announce once the first vlog goes live. You guys can go and have a watch, and like I said, it's retrospective vlogging, so it's from August, and I'll just be vlogging everything. So by the time you watch it, I'm still vlogging now, so the stuff that I'm vlogging now you probably won't even see until February times, which is perfect, because there's so many things happening and I get to share it with you guys, and I'm excited. Those of you who have reached out to me about the remote masterclass in January, please keep your eyes peeled, because I'm going to start releasing dates and stuff, and they're going to be limited tickets. Once the tickets are gone, that's it. And I'm planning to do a contract markup, so looking at your employment contract, how to mark it up, clauses to negotiate, how to negotiate those clauses, and explaining certain clauses so you can understand the risk and ramifications of certain clauses. And then I'm going to do how to pass your probation. Hopefully I'm going to do a masterclass that you'll be able to access, but I do want to do kind of like a live masterclass in January. So those 2 masterclasses on 2 separate dates will be in January, and I'll be releasing the dates and the tickets shortly, so please keep your eyes peeled. Those of you who want to follow me on social media, I think on Instagram I'm a bit of a vibe, especially when I'm in a good mood. I haven't been in a good mood for the last 48 hours, so forgive me, I'm human. Follow me on my personal Instagram page, Toya_Washington, or follow me on the Toya Talks podcast Instagram page, Toya_Talks. Follow me on Twitter, Toya_W, with the hashtag Toya Talks or Toya Talks podcast, or follow me on TikTok, Toya Washington, all one word, and of course where Toya Talks was birthed, which was Snapchat, Toya Washington, all one word. If you have a work related or life related dilemma that you think I'll be able to address here on the podcast, then of course feel free to email hello@toyatalks.com. As you've heard it from our fellow queens, they've told you the masterclasses are amazing. They are transformative, and more importantly, allows you to own certain aspects of your career journey. For example, the CV masterclass, the negotiation masterclass, interview skills masterclass, redundancy masterclass. These masterclasses are what I have poured into personally, and I've shared all my tips, all my tricks, all the things that I know that have made my career easier in terms of my CV, which is the shop front to your career and your experience negotiating, being able to interview and understand the certain questions that I'm allowed to ask in an interview. And I say allowed, you're allowed to ask anything you like, but developing the confidence to ask informative questions that will inform your decision if you were then offered a role. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to thank each and every one of you for tuning in. For all my reoccurring listeners, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate you. I see you. Thank you. If you are a new listener, welcome. Welcome to the Toya Talks journey. Welcome to the podcast. And please acquaint yourself with some of the older podcasts, which I know you will love. I'm going to see you guys next Tuesday. As always, my name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks podcast.